Welcome to the CS Week Marketplace webinar series. This webinar series offers fresh perspectives and strategies presented monthly by knowledge specialists from our Conference 39 Platinum and Gold sponsors. I'm Lisa Collins with CS Week, and I'll be your moderator today along with Jean Buckin, Marketing Consultant from AAC Utility Partners. Mark your calendars for CS Week and Conference 40 coming up soon, April 25th to the 29th, 2016, at the Phoenix Convention Center in Phoenix, Arizona. Watch your email and our social media channels for registration information. This program will be recorded and available for playback along with our other archived presentations later this afternoon. You will find it by selecting Marketplace under the Webinars drop-down menu from our csweek.org homepage. All attendees are encouraged to upload questions to the Q&A panel as they arise. However, all questions will be held until after the presentation for the Q&A segment. Please ensure that you address your questions to all panelists that we may see them. Today's webinar is Unwritten Rules of CIS Selection. Welcome to our presenters and moderator, Jean, with AAC Utility Partners, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Lisa. Our presenters today are Steve Wenke, Managing Partner of AAC Utility Partners. Steve Wenke is a Managing Partner with AAC, leading the strategy, assessment, and selection practice. Steve's specialties include business process analysis, requirements analysis, data analysis, and strategic planning. Steve has worked across multiple platforms, including customer information systems, enterprise resource planning, work management systems, and financial management software. He is an industry veteran with 20 years experience working with top-tier software vendors and dozens of integrator partners. His work with more than 55 different utilities in a dozen states plus Bermuda and Puerto Rico makes Steve an elite and valuable resource. Our other presenter is Heidi Konynenbelt, Manager of Computer Systems at Otter Tail Power Company. Heidi has 10 years of diverse electric utility experience at Otter Tail Power Company and is currently responsible for the hardware and software infrastructure that supports business and engineering operations, end-user hardware, software and support, and web and application security, development, and integration activities. She manages relationships with business partners and consultants that provide related services. Heidi collaborates with colleagues and business partners to identify and implement solutions that add value by increasing revenue, decreasing expenses, enhancing security, or improving customer service. And with that, guys, take it away.
Heidi, do you have official control now?
I do. I even changed slides. Did that work?
Perfect. Good job. Good job. Welcome, everybody. Man, we really, Heidi and I both really appreciate your time and joining us for this hour session. Real quick, just to elaborate a little bit, Heidi and I worked together on a project with Otter Tail and AAC. I was part of the team that worked with Heidi on this and thoroughly enjoyed and certainly privileged to have Heidi part of this presentation. As Jean mentioned, part of our experience, AAC and Steve, myself, been in the industry for quite a while working with both IT assessments and selections and helping folks like Otter Tail get through this process to get to a very good contract and ultimately helping them with their implementation of that. So with that, I'd like Heidi to do an introduction of herself as well as on top of what Jean has already done, and we'll continue on.
Sure. I will just add a little bit about our company to give some context for everybody who's listening in today, and also want to say I had the great experience of working with AAC over the last year together with Steve and his team on a selection phase of a new CIS. You can see there's some information about our company, but I want to specifically highlight that we are just kicking off implementation for a CIS replacement after our selection phase that ended December 2015. We had a 30-year-old CIS that was custom built in COBOL, ADSO, green screens. We had sold the original product 2 times to 2 other utilities, but our system was absolutely end of life. Just some of the things facing us, we knew we couldn't keep stretching and taxing that legacy system to accomplish. And so, so that maybe gives a little context for those of you who are in maybe a similar situation, or maybe you've upgraded since 1980 something, but we had not. So this was a major undertaking for us.
real quick, Heidi, before we go right in here, so I'd really like to give a shout out to the folks at City of Fort Collins. Man, they're just great. I'm here now working with them, and they've allowed me to take a little time away to do this webinar. So thank you guys. If you guys are listening, appreciate your time and flexibility. With this, just real quick, I'd like to digress just a minute. And when we approached Otter Tail, it was really interesting. We come back from AAC with industry knowledge of a lot of IT projects and their success, failure, and challenges. And we've implemented into our process of how can we help organizations become more into that 39% successful piece there. And we've really put together a process or methodologies to help organizations, because a lot of them, if you look at that, 18% of IT projects are pretty much in the failed, which means they've stopped the project or they've done something different than they originally set out to be. And the other one of those, or the biggest percentage of those is challenge, which means they've gone through these massive IT projects trying to transform their business and haven't got the functionality or the desired outcome that they've wanted or that they've paid for. So we've created a methodology to help increase that 39% to a larger number, and Otter Tail is obviously in that point. And I think, as Heidi will add to, is they realized that from their perspective that they needed a little outside help to help them because they hadn't done these type of projects before. And then Heidi, don't know if you want to add a little bit to that as well.
Yeah, I would say that's a very fair characterization of our company. We knew the significance of this project to our utility. I mean, our CEO calls it, the heartbeat of our organization. It's our revenue engine. And so we've had IT projects that on a much lesser scale without nearly that level of criticality that have not fully realized their full value, whether it was due to change management or something else in the implementation that didn't go well. And we knew we could not risk that on this type of a system change. And so we recognized early on that we were going to need help, and that we identified that we didn't have experience in-house necessarily to make this a successful project. But we knew we were going to have a successful project, and that was really what motivated us. We didn't let fear paralyze us, but it's true that is certainly a factor in these projects.
And what a lot of folks really don't understand is, or don't grasp the magnitude of these projects, and especially most of the folks since the Y2K era, everybody's kind of forced into making changes that they haven't done these massive or these really, really big high exposure systems before, and really helping kind of, one, reduce the risk, what does it take to do that, and then ultimately getting the outcome of what you've contracted to do with the vendor is certainly very, very important.
True. Okay, well, I'll start here if that's all right, Steve.
Absolutely. You go right ahead there, Heidi.
So early on in our exploration of realizing what we were going to do to upgrade our system, we recognized we just had to get our arms around what is in the marketplace, what's available to us. And we had, for 2 years in a row, purposefully sent IT and customer service employees to attend CIS Week to just network, identify, vendors, system integrators, consultants, anybody, try to find other utilities who had successfully implemented CIS systems ahead of us, try to find utilities who were like us, and CIS Week was just a great forum for that. So we made that a significant priority. I believe even some of our early connections with AAC happened at CIS Week. Must have been in 2013, 2014. I'm not sure even now. Goodness, time went by. 2014, I think.
Yeah. Well, and I'll just add that, if I could, just a little bit, Heidi, is that, this is an excellent forum that they participated in, actually for any organization to participate in, because in one central area, you've got CIS providers, you got system integrators, you have peripheral companies such as bill payment, remittance payment, all kinds of anybody who's associated with CIS implementations or any of the associated systems is all in one place. So it's a great opportunity, as Heidi said, one, to see the systems, but we're a big advocate in AAC is networking, getting folks to network talk about their experiences, and then help them, help themselves. So it's a great forum. So I highly suggest if anybody's contemplating going to CS Week this week, book, because I just heard from Amber that tickets are going and hotels are filling up. So make sure you get all that stuff reserved as soon as possible.
Another key thing that we valued and found really useful, especially looking back now, was we had not just one determined and strong executive sponsor, but we had two. Both our Vice President of IT and our Vice President of Customer Service recognized and prioritized this project and this effort very early on. Even the sending of people to CS Week, they were advocates, and they were vocal and worked through the issues of budgeting and prioritization for resources and everything to say that this project was an absolute necessity. And they were visible, and that really affected the other employees in the company. I think they also had,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to offer to you, Steve, that I think they even had conversations early on with you guys. And they, I know, reached out to other utilities as well personally to start those conversations.
Absolutely, and you'll see all through the slide deck is that having executive sponsorship really support the project, but most importantly the resources that can be dedicated in their time to the project is very, very key, because without the resources, any methodology is it's only as good as the methodology, but you need the people, you need the support of management to give those reassurances to the staff that, hey, listen, I'll help you backfill, I'll make sure you get what you need. So.
My boss at the time was the Vice President of IT, and he had a couple phrases that he would say, and he would say, "This is a very repeatable process. This upgrading your legacy CIS to a new CIS." He said, "We are not going to have to reinvent the wheel here. It's been done before. Other people know how to do it. We are going to find out what others did." And one of those things that he was really instrumental in was recognizing our need to hire somebody to help us in the project planning and implementation. And through those conversations with other utilities and from the research that he did and from that position that he had, he just made that a priority as well. And so was able to set aside, it was expense budget dollars for us to be able to hire somebody in to help us through the selection phase. We did go out for bid on that process, or for that project, and had good interest. Some of that interest too we had found through CS Week and other relationships, very useful, and that's when we really got to know AAC a lot better, when they came on site and met us for that RFP.
Mm.
We started early, also making sure we had documentation in place, good project management discipline. We drafted a charter. We recognized who all the key stakeholders were, who needed to be kept informed, and who had to be consulted and who had to be responsible and different things, so that we filled out our RACI matrix. We got a budget, a schedule, and a communication plan together, and really tried to bring some rigor to our process, even though it was early on, and we weren't even sure yet if we were going to have a capital budget or a capital project. This was early on. We started to formalize and really treat it like a legitimate project, and that also gave us some momentum and some recognition that this thing was really going. One thing I didn't mention earlier was just that Otter Tail has had, and maybe it was part of the fear that we talked about on the previous slide, but we'd had maybe 10 years where we had false starts on thinking we were going to do something with this legacy system. And so, these steps in this early stage, they really, looking back, were critical for us to help this project get realized. Anything you want to add to that?
And one of the things, absolutely, and one of the key things a lot of folks don't do at the early onset of a project is create a charter. Mm-hmm. And very, very early on a project, even with executive sponsors, it's imperative that you get executives' fingerprints all over this project. And in the first phase of doing the selection, and ultimately you do another charter for the actual implementation. That way, the scope is defined, commitment has been gathered, and management is obviously in tune with what the project expectations are going to be, because at the end result, you want to succeed in what you set out to do. And also that helps you build credibility through your project lifecycle, meaning that if I'm able to deliver what I said I'm going to do, then that helps your organization, get that momentum. It helps that change management, helps management get a vote of confidence, if you will, in the resources and the core team that's dedicated to the project. So all this, as you said, putting rigor behind this definitely helps the project, because the selection part and the assessment parts are I don't want to say fairly easy, but the implementation is where really it gets tough, and you need that commitment. So you're basically setting the building blocks for a successful overall project.
The next bullet there, let the business steer the project to ensure it is aligned with business goals and strategies. We would actually probably even change the word let to make the business steer the project.
There you go.
That was really critical for us, that IT wasn't trying to drive a project and force it down anyone's throats, or lead in an area where really it wasn't going to be a tool that IT used. It was just one that we were going to be supporting. And we had great support come in on the customer service side, from the top down, and that really made a big difference. And we also recruited others who were key stakeholders in the tool. So we formed it was a formal core team, but they were not fully dedicated to the project. They really had to fit the commitment to the selection phase in wherever they could, however they could. But we had a team of 6 that helped us, and they were mostly from the business. We had from representatives from our financial area, our regulatory or our rates department, I think 4 or so from customer service, and 2 from IT. Really good, broad involvement from the business side made a big difference.
Absolutely, and that's imperative in all projects, because both IT and the functional folks have to work together. And then you're facilitating what we call change management. Very, very early on in the project, you're starting to create and facilitate seeing new capabilities of what these systems can offer. So you're actually starting a change management process early on, which is kind of cool to see.
I mentioned this next one earlier, that we did talk to other utilities, but we went further than just talk to them. We did site visits, and if any of the utilities that we visited are on the call, we cannot thank you enough. We visited Green Mountain Power and Connexus and Clark Utilities and Cowlitz. We really put some miles on to take a team of people to go out and interview and spend time with individuals who were very selfless in sharing lessons learned and, project experiences that were just invaluable to us. And that was a very worthwhile effort. I strongly recommend that to anybody going through this process. Lastly, we included key stakeholders in the project, not just the ones that were on the core team, but they were almost acting as representatives of others, and we would bring others in as needed throughout the selection phase to make sure that we were incorporating the considerations of many people who use our CIS. Really helpful.
Absolutely.
I think, as you said, Steve, earlier, it really was kind of the first step in change management, and just it's fundamental first step that if you overlook it, pretty soon everybody's like, nobody asked me, and nobody thought to mention to me that this was going on, and it can be a real project killer, without hardly even getting out of the gates.
Oh, absolutely, and I think even you saw in our project, you had a lot of apprehension at the very, very beginning, but then as people really as you're sitting across in a core team, you're going through your complete organization and discovering what business processes work and what don't, light bulbs are going off, because everybody's got great people that work for them. They just want the tools to do it better. And what we're doing is we're going through that process to help them, give them the tools that they need. And it really is, it's kind of refreshing, because you look back and you go, oh, yeah, it's all intense intimidation at the very beginning, and everybody's a well-oiled machine, and the core team is working very, very well, and the project's really, really set up for success at this early phase. So absolutely right.
So moving on in our project, we recognized early on that we had to have better business process documentation, because we had a 30-year-old system. We had a lot of assumptions about what we thought we were doing, and how we were all interfacing with that system, and how we were integrated with each department, with each other, and that was also very valuable and became a core part also of our RFP that we ended up sending out to vendors. It showed exactly what we understood that we were expecting this system to be able to do and the processes that we required the system to do.
You know, I'll add a little bit that it's key because a lot of folks that, you know, we run across, you know, and projects that haven't been, you know, that are not in that success factor, they don't go into what we'll call the deep dive. They don't go into the organization and really understand what's working in the system and what's not. And then ultimately, what are the capabilities of what these new systems are? Because as you mentioned, you know, even in Otter Tail's perspective, when the group that originally implemented and you know, configured that system, they're all gone. So all that intellectual knowledge has gone, right? So we're kind of starting off, and so the core team that is now taking this ownership now become the shepherds of the new system. They're the ones that are going to change, or did change, or are changing Otter Tail Power and how they're going to service their customers, and it's you know, it's a big responsibility.
Yeah, and it's a real comfort to us to know that we have now the as-is documentation, so we can recognize the gaps that are between how we do it today and what the to-be processes are going to be, that the way we're going to do it tomorrow. So when we're developing our training material or when we're trying to talk about that future state, we have that context that we can help bridge that gap for our users of the system. Really helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, through that we also learn things about our current system, and we also were able to do an assessment of our current system, working with AAC to identify where we had strengths and weaknesses, and if there were things that we could do to, you know, maybe leverage our system a little better. We certainly identified where we were really end of life with our existing system, and some of that also fell out from our charter and things when we were trying to identify, you know, where are we going as a company, what's our roadmap and our strategy, and making sure that we could answer anybody asking us, well, what's wrong with the existing system? Why can't you just use that existing system? We had to do quite a bit of due diligence during that time. Steve,
well,
you maybe see this.
What's wrong?
Go ahead.
No, I completely agree with you. It's not only that what's wrong, but also what is it going to take to either implement or replace the system? Because you know, a lot of, you know, especially management, you know, they get a lot of false expectations of, you know, well, we can just put in a new billing system. What's it going to take? But when they see the amount of resources, and resources are obviously going to be a strain on the organization, but not only resources, time, and the dollars, it helps, again, you're setting up the project to be a realistic project, so expectations are set. It's going to take X amount of people to do this. It's going to take X amount of time and X amount of dollars. And so you're helping condition the organization to accept this is what it's going to take to really implement a sizable project.
Yeah, and one of the things that was really unique about our system that we identified that was a substantial effort that was going to take resources and attention particularly was our service territory is in 3 different jurisdictions, so we report to 3 different commissions. We have multiple rates in each of those jurisdictions. We also have Native American tribes in our service territory. We have demand response programs, and so there was a layer of complexity with our existing system that, you know, looking forward and to make sure that going forward and the regulatory market, what we expect and where we expect pressures to hit our system, those factors really weighed in heavily during this phase.
Yeah. I'm good with this. Good, excellent job.
Okay. So AAC, when they came in, they brought some wonderful tools, and one of our big concerns when we were selecting a consultant to help us was how will we know that we will get what we pay for when we go out for bids, and when we select a vendor who's going to put a new CIS in for us? How can we make sure that we get what we expect? And AAC had a really great tool set that helped to walk us through this whole process of selection, and a powerful piece of what they had us work on were our functional requirements. We had defined over 4,200 4,200, I should know that number by heart by now, of requirements.
Let's say 4,000 plus, right?
Yes, it was a substantial number, and that core team that served on that project, they really put in the hours, and AAC helped facilitate those conversations and get that documentation very specific, so we could, so when we provided that RFP out to the vendors, we would get detailed responses back and know exactly whether that system could or could not do the things that we were requiring. There's more tools that you guys provided, Steve, but that one for me was such a big one.
Well, and you know, anything we do in our Navigate One methodology, we have a tool set that'll take you, from the very the project charter to getting to the statement of work, which we'll talk about. But it's important because one, it's facilitators for you guys. It's a make sure that you capture everything you need to do to make sure that we have, or the organization has, what they need to do in order to enter into a contract with the vendor, and that's what the tool sets bring.
Right. So we issued this RFP out to the vendors. We had a significant number of responses. We were very pleased with the responses that we got. The vendors were invited in for some discovery sessions with us, and it was an opportunity for the vendors to ask us questions about the RFP so that they could get clarity, so that their responses were more customized to what their understanding of our needs and our utility was, and that really made a difference, and I think was helpful, because when they learned, for example, that we are rural and we cover 70,000 square miles and we have about 130,000 customers, then they knew, okay, training is going to be an issue because we have customer service centers that are spread out, and how are we going to get all of these system users trained? There were some specific things, that nuances of our specific situation that that those discovery sessions really helped. Plus, it was our first look into who the vendors were, how well prepared they came, had they read our RFP, what were they like? It was really an interesting phase. So they came and asked us questions, then they went back to the drawing board to build their bids for us. Sent their bids to us. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I say, and I'm sure you guys learned a lot. But just make sure, because the discovery phase is a little bit of an AAC term, so I apologize. But it's a lot of organizations or what they do is a pre-bid. And what we always try to do with our clients is try to facilitate what we call a discovery session, which is a little bit different. It just allows, because the team has put so much time into creating a very comprehensive RFP packet, it allows the vendors time to come in and ask very, very specific questions on how they can define a strategy to answer your RFP. And I think Otter Tail is interesting because you have a lot of very skilled sales folks out there, but you get the team got some insights into what the vendors' capabilities are, were they prepared or were they not. But also, just as importantly, is the vendors had an opportunity to really kind of understand what were the key business drivers that sometimes you can't complete in a written document. So it's a very worthwhile activity, and I think the team enjoyed it afterwards. We got some good information out there, that's for sure.
Yeah, we really did. And it was hosted off-site. It was a good time to just get away and focus on that, and really useful time. So when the bids came in, after the discovery sessions, they went away, wrote their responses up for us. We received the bids. AAC helped walk us through a very objective methodology. We had prepared our evaluation criteria ahead of time for evaluating the bids, and that was a first phase. And then we had a second phase for evaluation of demonstrations as well. And we had to prepare demonstration scripts. There was a lot of work on our team to accomplish it, but very thorough evaluation of the bids that came in. So the vendor responses, a lot of reading for us. Very well laid out, apples to apples, because of the way that the RFP was sent out, and it was a detailed RFP, but the responses were brought in a way that we could digest them, because it was, each section of what exactly you wanted to see, and answers according to whatever layout you wanted laid out. So it really made it, I guess the word is absorbable for us, if that's a word. It was absorbable, and I think also it helped us all feel very good about the process. And also, I think the integrity of the process was underscored many times by our Jim Anderson was the person who worked with us from AAC, and just really helped our team know to keep the process confidential, and to really be careful about what we were doing. We took our roles very seriously, and it just had great integrity in it, and I think that helped us all feel very good about the whole evaluation process.
It goes again to building credibility for your project, absolutely.
And then lastly, you know, all of that work, the functional requirements, the business process mapping, all of the template for the RFP that we worked on, a lot of that information and the bid response back all, you know, helped go into creating that statement of work for our implementation ultimately.
Well, I'll add just a little bit to Heidi, and
yeah.
This really, you know, was a heartbeat for Otter Tail. Is you know, when a contract is getting near signing, you have all these legal documents, maintenance agreements, professional services agreements, and operational maintenance agreements. But the key thing is the implementation part, and a lot of time is not set aside for actually really putting in the detail. You did a lot of work in RFP. Now let's bring that detail into the statement of work and really hold both the vendor and the client. And Heidi will attest that, you know, Otter Tail's got their responsibilities, which is fair for the vendor, and the vendor's got their responsibilities, which is, you know, ultimately fair for Otter Tail. And then now you have a tool to hold each organization accountable for doing that, because it fosters a partnership agreement between the client and the vendor. And this is what, you know, we're now managing to make sure that at the end of this project, we can go back to that statement of work and also that charter and say, okay, did we get what we paid for? And the answer should be absolutely yes.
Yep, great assurance on that. And the wealth of work that went through selection all built towards this statement of work so that we can have that. Very, very good point about that we get what we pay for, because, I mean, that ultimately was the big concern for us, and here was the full realization of that. I should state here probably too that after the evaluations, if anybody's wondering, I guess the vendor we chose was Kayenta Utilities, and our implementation is just started. We started February 1st, and so we're very excited about that. Our contract signing was recently, and so now we are just in the very beginning of implementation phases, and we'll probably be listening to CS Week webinars on lessons learned in implementation. We'll keep our finger on that pulse going forward.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so now we are in implementation. We did change from how we did selection. Selection, we had kind of voluntary core team members, but in implementation, our executive sponsors prioritized and supported having dedicated team members to the project. So we have, I think, about, well, I think by the time it gets all done, maybe 10 or so, 10 to 11 full-time members that are dedicated to the project, and then there will be subject matter experts who are brought in as needed throughout the implementation phase as well. So it's got a clear reporting structure. We have a project manager who is part of our selection phase, so has a lot of that background on our statement of work and understands the requirements and the definitions of what we are needing and expecting in this project. So we are really excited about that and looking forward to a really successful project. Again, the executive participation can't be understated, and we did have a kickoff. I didn't mention that earlier, but we had a kickoff where our Vice President of Customer Service traveled our service territory with the customer service core team members and let people know what was happening. There was a lot of communication that took place to this point and continues to take place, and that's really been key. Yeah, the roadshow events have been really good too. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and I must commend Heidi and the core team. They traversed quite a lot of miles and put a lot of miles on cars because of the geographic location of everybody. But it was great to see, because really in those kickoff meetings, even in the selection part, early on in the process, you're getting people involved. You're highlighting, you know, the awareness of the project. You're actually starting some change management very, very early on in a project, because there's nothing worse than going through a project and saying, well, I didn't know about that, or I wasn't involved in that, and you have, you know, a little bit of negativity in your project. So part of what Otter Tail did, which was great, was they made a very big effort. I mean, I think the actual kickoff presentations were a week long. I think you did what, five or seven of them, and but you know the end product of it was you got, you know, you got great visibility. user buy-in, and people were excited that, hey, something's coming. This is a project that's actually happening. So it was a good effort.
Yeah, and really an opportunity for those conversations early if there was, angst or concern or reservations, getting those things out and having those conversations, before the change was upon somebody, so they had time to, time to understand the reasons why and help grow their own desire for the change. That really, that change management piece is so significant in projects like this. So yeah, we're very happy with the selection phase, very happy to be where we are today, and we feel very good about the statement of work we have in place and where our employees are in terms of their understanding of the project and being, coming along with us. So yeah, we're moving into the next phase now, and it's pretty exciting. So in summary, definitely encourage everyone to attend CIS Week. Great way to network, great way to learn about the marketplace and what others have done and lessons learned, all kinds of, as Steve, you mentioned, just so many relevant parties that are there related to CIS, and any questions you have, you can find people there as resources to help you answer your questions.
Well, and also, like you alluded to a little bit earlier, is the CS Week is not a forum just for the the C vendors and system integrators and the peripheral systems and actually see the applications. But they do have a great selection of sessions that pertain to everything that's going out in the industry between net metering, implementations, post-go lives, what are other folks doing, plus the networking opportunities. It's in my opinion, it's a great forum. And even like what we did with Otter Tail, when Otter Tail was even in the procurement, we were able to organize very, very specific demonstrations early on in the process so that they can get they've heard the names, now they can actually see some of the software. So it was a great learning experience.
Yeah, excellent. And through those relationships, sometimes you can grow trusted advisors, or if you know trusted advisors, that has been invaluable to us as well. Strongly encourage that, and the issuing a clear, specific RFP for us, that was just fundamentally a priority for us to get a very clear RFP out there, because we wanted to know that when the vendors bid on our project, they really knew what they were getting into, and that we knew we were going to evaluate them fairly based on what our needs were. That really was a critical step for us. And then that thorough statement of work, I think we talked about that quite a bit, but just can't be understated how important that is now as that guiding document for us going forward, and having clarity in there.
Absolutely, and I always go back and what Otter Tail did masterfully is a lot of times in the RFP you get I need a new CIS system. If you don't put the detail into the RFP, then the vendors are, they're a little bit of a disadvantage. They don't know how to respond. They want to put forward the best responses they can, but unless they have the data to respond, they can't. And then that then gives the core team the necessary tools to evaluate each vendor equally. And it could be, an RFP could be issued for a vendor, and part of that vendor could encompass a system integrator. And I think even in Otter Tail's perspective, you got a combination of both what we'll call self-installed systems and also a combination of vendors that use system integrators. Mm-hmm. And it's really imperative that you have the ability to select the software, because that's what you're going to be using, but also Otter Tail did a great job in also selecting, do I need to look at SIs and what are their capabilities? In this particular case, the Kayenta had some different advantages than other packages, but it really, from the organization standpoint, we sent out what we call a basically an RFP that allowed anybody to bid, whether they have a system integrator or not. And then you have evaluation criteria to really accommodate that. So, and then all that documentation, the RFP, all the functional requirements, all the responses then filters into the scope of work of holding the vendor accountable for what they committed to doing.
Yep, excellent. So, and we mentioned how we organize the project team, and we have them fully dedicated to the project with clearly defined roles. They have job descriptions. We're adopting the tools that both our vendor, Kayenta, and AAC are bringing to the table for for the implementation project, and we have clear performance expectations that are set. We are, as my former boss, who is retired, but as he would say, this is going to be a very successful project, and we feel we have the right supports in place, and we've done a lot of the groundwork to enable this project to succeed. So we are very optimistic, and we know it's going to be a lot of hard work, but we feel like we have good guide rails in place to help us get to the destination that we're heading for. Our go live is expected in Q1 or early Q2 of 2018. It's a 24-month project. We started February 1st, so February 1st may be the date that we go live, but we'll have to work with what fits for our end users here. If we have, accounting still doing some year-end close or something, we might bump that a little bit, but it's a 24-month implementation plan for us, and we are fully expecting to be on schedule and on budget with this project.
And it's amazing how that word keeps circling back. Executive management. Yep. It is so imperative having that type of support and all throughout both the selection and the implementation. And they're going to be tested. And Heidi and her group have done a masterful job in getting all the right people in line with what needs to take place during the implementation part.
Well, yeah. Well, thank you for that, Steve. You guys have been instrumental to us and so helpful, and we've really enjoyed the partnership. We are ready, I think, for me to pass this back over. Any final thoughts, Steve, before I do that?
No. Thank you again for your time, and thanks to folks for your time. I think we'll have some Q&A questions that some folks have submitted. We'll get those answered, I think. So, Jean, are you taking over taking the con?
Absolutely. Thank you, Steve and Heidi, for that valuable presentation and information. If you have any questions for our presenters, please be sure to submit them through the Q&A panel to all the participants so everyone can see them. So now I'll go ahead and start with the questions we've received. Many RFP advisors suggest running two separate RFPs, one for product and other for SI. However, we've noticed that AAC pretty much runs on one RFP where there are vendors who propose different CIS products. How do you ensure an apples-to-apples comparison?
Well, I'll take a stab at that, Heidi, and then you can certainly validate it because we had that same situation happen at Otter Tail. It's really, from an application standpoint, mostly we see like the Oracles and SAPs that have multiple SIs or some other vendors that are coming in the marketplace that are contemplating having SIs assist in their implementations. So you really have a couple different mechanisms to look at. One, you have to have some type of evaluation criteria and basically viability for the software provider. They're ultimately going to be instrumental in the ongoing success of the implementation, because once the SI leaves, you're still left with the software. So you need to look at that, and then also you need to look at the same thing with the SI. You need to look at the viability of the SI, and then more importantly, you need to look at the tools and their capabilities that they bring to implement the CIS system. And one, in the RFP, we provide a very, very clear and concise request of information so that the core team can decipher between applications and system integrators where you have multiple integrators proposing the same application. So you do have tools. We do have tools to look at both of those those verticals, if you will, or those parallel streams of both SI and systems going forward. So that helps the team do that.
That's a great answer. I don't have anything to add, Steve.
Yeah, because I mean, we did run across that at Otter Tail, and
we did. Yep.
They had to go through a very diligent, looking at SI to SI, where you're looking at, the Oracles and SAPs in that particular example. So.
Okay, the next question is, what was the overall timeline for the selection process?
Oh, Heidi, you're going to have to probably our normal, our typical timeline is to do a select, like an assessment and selection is between, let's just say, 7 and 9 months. In a lot of times I get gasps of, and I think when we were talking with Otter Tail, why does it take so long? And I think Heidi can probably attest to now it really does take that long, and so I think we were pretty close. I didn't look at the schedule for you guys, Heidi, but I think it's pretty close to that, 8 or 9 months maybe.
Yeah, we were, you know, when we started, it depends on when you say the start point is for selection. So we probably had a year ahead of time before we partnered with AAC, which was kind of a research year where we were talking to utilities and we were going to CS Week and we were kind of drafting our own charter internally. And then we formalized and said, we're going to do a formal selection phase. And we got a budget together and we, you know, had our executive sponsors say this is going to be a legitimate selection phase with the intent to go into implementation, assuming we get capital budget approval. And that phase for us ended up lasting about 12 months, I think, actually, with mostly due to scheduling for the approval processes that we had to go through for the capital budget so that we could move into implementation. And I would say selection, you're right, Steve, that it was about 9 months when we finally had picked our vendor and we were ready to go. And then the remaining 3 months, I still count as selection phase, but it was kind of finalizing the contract work, finalizing the approvals, and getting all of our ducks in a row so that we could move into and transition into an implementation phase.
Sure, and a lot of folks don't realize too is, you know, the scheduling of your subject matter experts, vacations and holidays and all that has to factor in there too. So it just takes some time. Yeah,
we had a Christmas in there that was a big chunk of time. Yeah, that's true.
And you guys do one off for Christmas, so
you do. We got a lot of management time. Yeah.
The next question that came on is, roughly how much is it costing to replace with Kayenta?
Oh.
Well, yeah, that's a good question. Steve, I'll let you answer it because, you know, it really depends on the utility, I would say, and, you know, your staffing and everything. So, Steve, you probably have seen more replacements than just Otter Tail.
Yeah. Oh no. That's I would say that's the $1 million question. It's really hard to say because each organization is vastly different. And if you look at what makes up the cost, you know, is functionality, technology, which also includes not only the hardware infrastructure, but, you know, more importantly, the interfacing of what third-party applications are out there. The staffing is a big question mark. Just having what staffing is available from the organization, you know, there's a big delta there. And part of what, you know, we like to do is what we call operational analysis, where we really look at what staffing is available, what their deficiencies are, or where there are no deficiencies, because somebody's got to make that up. It takes X amount of people to do a project. So those are all kind of attributes there. So every project's going to cost different. There's no, you know, set number for a project. Number of services you have, meter points that you have, all those are all factors into what a cost of a project is. And I don't think it's, but anyway, yeah, that's a good answer to that one.
Heidi, I believe the next one's for you. Do you consider a hosted CIS, which is catching up fast and some utilities have already adopted?
We did not consider hosted CIS. I mean, we initially said, will we consider hosted, and we determined at that point, no, we weren't going to do a hosted solution.
Okay, and Heidi, this next one's also for you. Can you expand on the job responsibilities of the 10 dedicated staff? Are they divided into distinct areas of functionality for implementation?
Yes, they're very similar to what our roles were on the selection phase. So again, we have somebody in rates. We have a person in the finance side, our accounting side, and then two dedicated from IT, one for conversion, one for technical, and we have, let me see, a couple more that are specifically customer service, like testing and training. And these roles are kind of like lead roles. They're going to be the core person who's accountable for those for the performance of the system for those specific functions. And then there's a project administrator. There's a project manager. There's I think a couple people that are like analyst support staff that are helping. So I think I might have counted 10. I wasn't counting on my fingers there for that, but that should give you kind of a broad sweep of the key roles that are on the project.
And how did you select team members?
Pardon?
How did you select the team members at Otter Tail?
There was an interview process, just like any standard job opening at the company. We posted the roles. People applied internally, and they were interviewed and you know, selected for the project, and they are becoming part of a project team that is set aside. I think it's even its own cost center now in our company, and it's going to be dedicated. And we did clarify when people were applying for these roles that there was no guarantee of anything at the end of the project. It isn't like, you know, if you go on this project and it's expected to be a 24-month long project, we can't guarantee that at the end of 24 months you can just continue perpetually in that role. You'll have to find something else at that time. But we also strongly encourage people that, you know, this is the new system of our future. You know, we value people who are going to step out and take this initiative and show this interest and help us get on a new platform. So we certainly, you know, although we can't make guarantees and it is a temporary assignment or a temporary role, we strongly, you know, look after our employees and expect that there'll be opportunity for them in the future.
Well, I'll add a little bit of that, if I may, Jean, is another key thing is when you're first starting off either the selection or the implementation project, you've got to pick out, or you should say you also have to assign or identify key resources that are going to be instrumental in the facilitation of the implementation, meaning it's the most painful people that are going to, you know, that can be removed from your project. Those are the ones you want. Because they're the ones that have all that intellectual knowledge, they have all the business processes in their heads that hasn't been put into the system. So you want to get that out and put that in. And then also what you're looking for is folks that really want to change the organization and want to take initiative. And I know, and I'll speak with Heidi's team, as they had a, you know, you had some very charismatic folks that were in there that really wanted to do something different for an organization. And those were all like, check the box, yep, I want that person, I want that person, I want that person. And then, you know, look again to assign those to the project team, both for the selection and implementation if you can.
We did have really strong enthusiasm for people who cared a lot about this project, and they were happy to serve on the selection phase. And that was more by invitation. So what we did see is a lot of carryover from that team. We have a lot of the same members that were on that selection phase, certainly had an advantage going into the interviews for the project for implementation. And, you know, because they cared and they were passionate and they absolutely were the vital resources who knew inside and out about our system. It does make a strong team.
Great. The next is about the RFPs. What were the main drivers for OTP in selecting the vendor to implement the CIS solution?
Oh, I feel like I should give a technically exact answer on this, like go back and look at our evaluation criteria. You know, there were a lot of factors that we were considering for vendor selection. I would say a big consideration and concern for us was making sure that that system could do our rates. We just have complicated rates. We're sure we're the most complicated utility in the nation, and I'm sure every utility feels that way. But we're sure we are. And so we really wanted to make sure we had a vendor that demonstrated to us in the demonstrations that they could do our rates. And then we wanted a tool that was a fit for Otter Tail for our size and our staffing and our support model. We are a lean company. We're maybe the smallest IOU in the nation. And so we had to have something that felt right to us, and that user interface felt right also. There was a lot of that played into it. You know, how did we like it? I think that that affected, you know, many people's perspectives when we were evaluating systems. So yeah, I would say those three things: you know, the rates, the fit of it as a technology for us, and then third, the user interface. Those three stand out to me in my mind.
Well, I'll add a little bit that Heidi is also, you know, is because you had all that intellectual capital wrapped up into, you know, your current existing system, the organization was wanting to change over to a little bit more of a risk-adverse model to have the vendor have that, and that's the support issues. And then ultimately, you know, having a system that you know, Otter Tail can grow with, you know, as Heidi said, you know, they're small, but you're very, very complex, and your geographic location, the services that you provide, your customer base, and how you service your customer base is very, very unique. Everybody's unique. So a system that can accommodate that, but also help them basically morph some of their business processes into more industrial or more industry-specific business processes was also a key for that as well.
Mm-hmm. And we did care a lot, too, about their track record of implementations. You know, how well did they deliver projects like this on schedule, on budget, and had they dealt with somebody who had a legacy system like ours that was 30 years old, could they effectively get the project done for us? That mattered to us as well.
And given your geographic location and how far spread you were, that was a challenge for a lot of these software providers.
Yeah, right.
I believe we have time for one more question. This one's also about the RFP process. Did you probably refers to Heidi? Did you have many responses to the RFP, and roughly how long did it take to receive responses to the RFP?
We had amazing responses to the RFP. I think had we done the process on our own, I don't think we would have gotten the interest and turnout. And maybe it was, you know, our size. Maybe we could maybe say Otter Tail's size and everything. We were a fit for Tier 1s maybe to come down and pick us up, and we were a fit for Tier 2s, and even, I mean, there were a lot of vendors. We could fit their market. And I think we had 18 responses to the bid, to the RFP, 18 bids.
I was just in the process of trying to look at it. It was a good amount. And keep in mind, we got some. I think somebody asked too about the multitude of SIs and software providers, but you received quite a great pretty close to 18 to go through that. And getting through like the timeline question, Jean, is we typically in the process give the vendors probably about 30 days, maybe 35 days. Some folks have a little bit of extra logistics to get their proposals sent in. And then I think after that, the team, based on the volume, we extended the project timeline. I think, was it, Heidi, about 2 weeks, 2 extra weeks?
I think so.
So we gave them almost a month to read through the proposals, if I recall.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's great.
It just takes time.
Sorry, that wraps up all the questions that we have. So thank you so much for this presentation, Steve and Heidi. And Lisa, I'll turn it back over to you.
Well, thank you, Jean, and Steve and Heidi. That was just a phenomenal presentation. We enjoyed it, and thank you for sharing your story with us. Just have a couple of quick reminders just before we sign off that registration for CS Week and Conference 40 in Phoenix is open, and early registration ends March 1st, so you'll want to take advantage of that price savings. And also for you to join us next month, our next Marketplace webinar will be sponsored by Wipro. It is Digital Roadmap for the Utilities Industry, and that will be on Thursday, February 18th. I'm sorry, I said March, but it's February 18th at 2 p.m. Eastern. So register now to attend. And with this, we will go ahead and close out this session with saying thank you to AAC Utility Partner and all of our attendees for joining us today. Thank you.
And thank you, Heidi. Appreciate all your time and partner up on this awesome job.
Thank you, too. Really enjoyed it. Thanks, everybody.